Welcome to Adams Athenaeum. Let's take a look together through the news and records of our times as we try to shed light upon the unvarnished truth. Thanks for coming back to check out this episode where, once again, we're going to try and go through a lot of topics, and however long it takes, that's okay. Just to give you a highlight of some of the topics I'd like to talk about today, that way you have an idea of what you're in for. I'd like to talk about the coup, or, the thing that happened in 2019, lasted a few years, kept us all locked in our homes. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's remind ourselves of the pandemic response, as well as the shut-ins and the lockouts. And we'll shift gears a little bit after that. We'll talk about algorithm influences, intersectionalism, the culture war, woke politics, race riots at schools. We're going to try to touch on Antifa and BLM today, as well as equality, diversity, and inclusion. We'll remind ourselves again of the 2020 riots, the 2020 election law changes, which all led up to January 6th. We'll talk about the Biden election, his withdrawal from Afghanistan, and assuming we still have time today, we'll try to hit the LGBTQ topic, trans topics, drag topics, mansplaining and toxic masculinity, which if you talk about that, you need to talk about toxic femininity, dating and relationships. We can even touch on jails, talk about the family unit, or abortion and assisted suicide. One thing I mentioned previously was that we can talk about the LGBTQ agenda. Well, then we're going to expand upon that. We're going to talk about the LGBTQIA plus agenda. We're going to talk about the trend of 5+ trans or gender non-conforming shooters. I'm going to talk about hormones and sex changes because you're being lied to about those. We're going to talk about DAs, prosecuting attorneys, and judges, ankle monitors and bail, gun laws and taxes. We'll even hit on AI, lithium mining and slavery. Maybe even draw some imagery from the movie The Passion of the Christ. We can talk about Ukraine and Russia or China's genocide since 2014. Or what about Epstein and Maxwell? Whatever happened about that? And self-defense versus rioters. So as you can tell, there is a lot to go through. We very well may not get through all of this today. To some degree, this will be a deep dive. To some degree, it may not go as in deep or as in depth as you may like. Some of that is just time constrictions. I'm doing a live stream here. God only knows how long it can be. So there's only so much information I can provide to keep it interesting without keeping it monotonous and boring, right? So let's start off at the very beginning. The coup, 2019. I remember before most Americans even heard about the coup, I was hearing about it from small journalists talking about some kind of sickness, some kind of flu-like sickness that was rapidly spreading in China. It seemed to come from a wet market, and Chinese people were starting to wear masks or something like that. And I was one of the first people to hear about this because of how involved I am in politics and watching videos on YouTube. One of the first people that heard about it, probably. And I'll admit, I was one of the first people at my job telling my coworkers, telling my lady at the time, hey, there's a really bad sickness. Like, I know we get the yearly flu from China. We get different strains from those easterly winds. But I think this is going to be worse. I think this has the potential to do great damage to our society. And we should be reading up on it, and we should be prepared. I was one of the first people to say, maybe we should wear masks. Maybe the Chinese had it right. And then, slowly but surely, America started to hear about it. Not long after that, the first couple cases started to show up in America, and then it quickly spread to what we all remember. Videos on your morning news program showing you nonstop videos of the semi-trailers waiting outside of hospitals for all the dead bodies. Remember, that's how bad it was supposed to get right off the bat. We were terrified. Rightfully so, maybe, as it was something we hadn't dealt with before. I'll give credit where it's due. It's better to be safe than sorry, right? That's how the saying goes. Well, again, being as involved as I am in the news, trying to figure out the truth from as many places as I need to, no matter how many places that takes me to find. I search for the truth, I search for answers, search for guidance. And interestingly, what I found before Americans were ever told to mask up was that masks may be ineffective. Now, that's before Anthony Fauci was ever propped up. That was before mainstream America was wearing masks, right? I was one of the first to say maybe wearing a mask would be a good idea. And then I saw the data that proved, unless you were wearing an N95 mask, and even then, unless you were wearing it in the right conditions and wearing it properly, changing it out regularly, not touching your mask, then an N95 mask could do some good. But as for the rest of the cloth masks that 7-Eleven and your local grocery store started to produce that were masks made in China, they didn't do anything. That piece of cloth did nothing to prevent the spread or you receiving the disease. We know that. It's fact. They've admitted it. It only took them 2 years to admit it, but now we finally know. I mean, one of the greatest arguments I heard against masks was based off of a joke. How can a mask stop a virus when your jeans can't even block the smell of your fart? Think about it. The vaporous gases have escaped your butt and escaped your jeans, and now people can smell them. Well, dude, your jeans are 5 times thicker than a COVID mask. If your jeans can't stop the smell of a fart, can this flimsy little mask with a million little holes in it, can that really stop a virus? No. It was never plausible or reasonable. It was just a method of control, and we fell for it. Now, I was one of the first people to change my tune because, again, all I did was essentially live, eat, and breathe YouTube. Not just YouTube, social media, newspapers, news articles, all sorts of things to get a really good encompassing view of what the hell was going on. Because Tony Fauci was just lying to us. The media was lying to us. All they wanted to do was purport the death numbers to scare everybody. The death and the hospitalization numbers. Well, let me remind you, we eventually figured out that they were, what's the right word? They were trying to fearmonger with the data. They would say that all these hospitals are overwhelmed and overrun and there's no more space for COVID patients. And oh my God, what are we going to do? Sounds terrible. China started mass building, quickly put together hospitals. Like in a week, they would put together a brand new hospital just for COVID. Maybe that's the direction we wanted to go too. But I would ask, what would that help? I don't think it would help anything. So, they told us to mask up, even though now we know it's ineffective. People with common sense were asking these questions way back then, but you were silenced or removed from social media for having such a god-awful opinion. How dare you try to kill grandma rather than wear your mask? is how it was phrased. When in reality, the best thing you could have done for grandma was take off your mask and get outside in the sunshine, rather than listening to the government and staying inside and wearing your mask. Wow. You would think that the experts, right? The experts who are trained in this field, who spent 30 years on television talking about this field of medicine that they're in, they might have a freaking clue about what was going on. No. No, my friends, regular people like you and I had more insight, common sense, and rationale regarding this disease than anyone in the scientific community did. I would also remind everyone, they said, and again, this comes from Trump, they said, let's lock up for, 15 days to slow the spread. Turned into 2 years. So with our pandemic response, was it appropriate? Was it too much? Was it not enough? So 1 million people died in America. That's a lot. Now the numbers were projected to be much, much higher. So in that regard, we did good. Did we underreact? That's a good question. Maybe to some degree we reacted slow compared to how others reacted. But when we did act, I think it was over-exaggerated and unrealistic. It was not wholly based on science. It was based on fear. Now there's this quote I like. It's from a movie, a Halo movie. And I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but it goes something like this. And again, this is in regards to fear. They told me a long time ago that silence is a soldier's best enemy. They told me a long time ago that silence is a soldier's best friend. It lays bare all of your enemy's movements and allows you to go forth sneakily into the night and sneak up on your enemy. I learned a long time ago that was a lie. For silence allows a soldier time to think, time to be scared. And a scared soldier starts making choices to make the fear go away. And that doesn't mean that those choices to make the fear go away are good or reasonable or rational. Doesn't mean that they're actually going to solve the problem. It just means you reacted out of fear because you wanted the fear to go away. So we just told everyone, stay inside, wear your masks. And as it was kind of obvious, somewhat painfully, as people kept dying, and this strategy didn't seem to be working, we stuck with it. We doubled down on it. For God's sake, Tony Fauci told you, oh, this isn't working. You can wear 2 masks. Maybe wear 3 masks. Yo, are you really that dumb? You really think that this piece of cloth, which does not protect you from the virus, you think that adding 2 or 3 more and obstructing your breathing is actually going to help? I mean, maybe. Maybe you idiots that are a waste of space, maybe it would have hindered your breathing. And we wouldn't have to deal with you anymore. Maybe it could have helped in that way. But did it stop people from dying? No. Did the mask stop you from catching the virus? No. Did the mask stop you from spreading the virus? No. So we freaked out and bought out all the Clorox, bought out all the bleach, bought out all the toilet paper. For what? Again, we learned quite clearly through time the best solution for this virus was to be outside, take your mask off. Be outside in the sunshine, in the fresh air. Sure, maybe keep some distance from others, or if you see someone coughing, don't stand right in front of them. Sneeze into your elbow. Don't just sneeze into the world. Don't sneeze in or cough into your hand, because then you touch everything with your hands. Use your elbow. You almost touch nothing with your elbow. And that was just us. And that doesn't even include, I'm talking here about the pandemic response. This doesn't even include the shut-ins and the lockouts. So here we are, scared about this disease. We say it's bad for everybody, and that if you don't follow the rules, you could kill grandma. Okay, seems like a fair line of rules. Except not everyone played by those rules. Remember all the politicians, the hosts on CNN, who would just take vacations, and what do you know? Hundreds of pictures show up of them on vacation without masks, surrounded by other individuals. And they're in close, tight quarters, inside, with no masks on. This was the obvious start of the rules for thee, but not for me. The government would tell you to alter your life drastically, make it a living hell. But they're too good for that. You little heathens, you don't deserve life. You deserve hell. But we, the elites, your rules don't apply to us. We get to do whatever we want. We just tell you what to do. How many of you remember that you couldn't go to church? That's right. The church, even though they have separation from the state, legally, constitutionally, what did they do? The church, damn near all of them, bent over backwards. They said, "Here, please spit before you use me." Instead of standing up for God and his message and the truth, the rights of the individuals, no. The church folded upon itself and went right along with what the state told you. Now, some churches tried to fight back, but the church as a whole lost. They didn't stand up for anyone. Hi, kitty cat. How you doing? Sometimes when I get talking too liberty-minded, I think this little socialist cat likes to come up and have a little argument. Don't mind the cat. She's just enjoying it. Anyway, so I would ask, were we measured in our response? Again, I would remind you that you couldn't go to church, but you could go to a strip club. You can't go to a church where they forced you to sit 6 feet apart and wear masks. Yet you can go to a strip club where people are breathing hard and hot and heavy. They're drunk. They're slobbery. They're hot and sweaty. This just sounds like a cesspool for COVID to me. Anyone else? Anyone else? Does this sound like a breeding ground for COVID? Don't forget, you can't go to your gym and work out to be healthy. No, we need you to be fat and stay at home and die. Remember, they told you that going to the gym to get healthy was bad, and that it was better for you to stay at home fat and die. Even though, what were the leading causes of morbidity? Obesity. Obesity and 1 or 2 other comorbidities. So instead of telling people to actually do something to fix themselves or help prevent themselves from getting the sickness, we just encouraged it. We let people be weak. We encouraged them to continue to be weak. And instead of doing anything to help themselves, we banned it. We penalized the gym owners who were just trying to keep their businesses open too. You had women who had like an Etsy shop online. They're selling things out of their garage, right? They're making things by themselves in their garage, packaging them by themselves, shipping them off by themselves to wherever they're going. And some of these women were raided by the police. arrested for operating a business. What? You couldn't even follow the rules and still be following the rules. Now, maybe we didn't go as far as China. China went insofar as to weld people inside of their homes for months. At one point, it got so bad that there was videos coming out from China of people on their rooftops with no power that had out of this view that you can see, almost every single apartment balcony or patio had their refrigerator unit outside open for all the world to see that, hey, there's no power and there's no food and we're welded shut inside our homes. Now, granted, that was the Chinese. We actually came kind of close to doing that. Oh, you don't know about that. Okay. See, that's why I'm here. I'm here to remind you of all this stupid shit that we put up with over the last few years, thanks to Biden. I'm here to remind you of what needs to change. You might say it's crazy that the Chinese would go so far as to weld people inside their house for months on end with no food and no electricity. I say to you, the U.S. government of New York did almost the very exact same thing. Okay, I get it. I butchered words there. In some respects, the state government of New York went as communist as America would allow, following China's footsteps. What do I mean? They welded shut Jewish parks, schools, and playgrounds in New York. The New York governor, God, I don't even remember his name because he got kicked out. He was a piece of shit anyway. I don't care. He thought it was a good idea to take one group of individuals that have already been exterminated in one genocide, and he tried to say, you're the problem. You're not allowed to go to school. You're not allowed to meet with your community. You're not allowed to have your Sabbath. I'm welding you people in. You're not allowed to come out. Holy shit. For you people on the left that scream everyone's a Nazi and everyone's Hitler and punch a Nazi in the face, you idiots do realize that this is what Nazis did? They shut the Jews in bunkers, in the ghettos, in the concentration camps, and they exterminated them. We were okay with that. America let a race of individuals be persecuted for their beliefs, and we let the state enforce its will upon religion in multiple ways. Again, not just the Catholic churches, but the Jewish community as well. And what did it fix? Nothing. It wasn't until people quit wearing their masks, people quit getting the stupid COVID, the stupid coof shot, the stupid boosters. It wasn't until people quit doing that we started to see a significant drop in the sickness. Isn't that interesting? It wasn't until we stopped believing in it that it started to go away. Now, I'm not saying there's any correlation there. I'm just saying, isn't it funny that when we were so afraid and doing all these things to supposedly fight COVID, none of it worked? Because none of it was based in science or studies or data. It was one man telling you, 1 week, wear a mask. Next week, don't wear a mask. Next week, wear 2 masks. Next week, you don't need a mask. Next week, 3 masks. Next week, you just need 1 booster. Next week, you're going to need like 4 boosters. And by the way, we're going to have like 4 different categories on your COOF passport card because, this may go well beyond just COVID. One of the next topics is algorithm influences. And I'm going to try to intertwine this into COOF. You might wonder why I'm saying COOF instead of COVID-19. Algorithm influences. The algorithm. The stupid set of computer codes that ban one from speaking truth is the simplest way I can define what an algorithm is. Now, sure, if we want to be more honest and less conspiratorial, an algorithm is essentially a code, more or less a set of instructions on how to operate, right? But when a code is told to operate in a specific way that is counterintuitive to, say, the American Constitution, then we have issues. So, for instance, constitutionally, I can say anything I would damn well please. Thanks to YouTube's algorithm, there's certain things I can't say anymore. There was a noted drop of views, of subscribers. A lot of channels got pulled. Lots of channels got demonetized. Simply for talking about, how can I word this? Have you all heard about that beer boycott happening? You know, the blue company, their logo, their branding, generally blue. Big companies, Anheuser-Busch. You know that big boycott going on because of a certain individual that took over the face of the company and now everyone's pissed about it? See, I can't even talk about that trans person's name because the algorithm will automatically pick up on me either saying their name or the company name or maybe me misgendering a man. There's certain, I cannot say his name, I cannot say his gender, nor can I say the boycott that this relates to. Otherwise, the algorithm can pick up on any of that, and instantly my videos are suppressed, not shown to anybody. They just put another filter on my account to where it's even harder to see me, harder to find my videos. The algorithm is certainly helping to destroy America. When freedom-minded people, when liberty-loving people just want to talk about the truth, and you can get banned for that, that's a dangerous precedent. When people like you and I just have a yearning for actual facts and data, I don't want to hear someone on some freaking news channel say, well, you need to trust the data and the science. But they don't quote any data, no scientists, no studies, no polls. They're not even an expert in what they're talking about. They just happen to be a type of scientist. How do they get promoted? But with all the research and everything that I have to do, I'm the one that gets silenced. I'm the one to get banned. Because the algorithm doesn't like what I'm talking about. Who cares? I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to a computer. I'm trying to reach humans. So yeah, there's certain things we can't talk about. I can't say COVID-19 and then have this big old discussion without getting flagged. There's still to this day things you cannot say about COVID-19 without getting flagged or banned. And that is wrong. How are we supposed to be informed, educated, have any sort of common sense if we've been told to ignore the truth, lie about reality, and lie to everyone else about what is actually going on around us? You want to know how communism starts? Everybody has to believe the lie. Everybody. That's what they're pushing. To tie this into algorithm influences, we're going to bring up intersectionalism, right? What is intersectionalism? It's the people who want brownie points or the people who are seeking social validation because they're several categories, right? As a straight white male, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Everyone hates me. No one thinks my opinion is worth shit. I'm just a racist because of my skin color. I'm a misogynist because I'm male. I have no redeeming qualities because I'm a white, straight male. Okay. Here is a good example of intersectionalism for you. Social media and news companies years ago found out that if you wrote an article about, let's just say, an armed felon gets killed by police, you might get a standard viewing. People started to notice that if you said white officer or black subject or unarmed or disabled or trans or gay or lesbian or this or that, the other, whatever label you could put, that brought you more views. So what the algorithm did was it spurred hate reading. What do I mean? The algorithm learned that to keep you on the social media sites, the best way they can do that is by keeping you mad, pissed off, and filling you with hatred. So what do they angle their news stories towards? Isn't it interesting that all you see and all you hear about it nowadays is the violence, the murders, the rape, the drugs, all the people dying from overdoses, the fentanyl crisis. It's funny how you almost never hear positive news anymore. It's because it's not received well, right? People aren't, I mean, to some degree we are, but for the most part, people aren't just sitting on YouTube for 12 hours a day only watching funny cat and dog videos, right? What gets people is black officer shoots white man, or I guess that doesn't bother people. White officer shoots black man, right? Or white officer shoots unarmed victim. Or here's another good one. If you're gay, black, non-binary, disabled, you're like at the top of the totem pole. Like if you're Native American, disabled, gay, non-conforming person, again, you're at the top of the totem pole according to intersectionalism. Because that's what will get you more views and more clicks, and that's what will keep people on the internet. It's sick, really. I mean, I've heard of doomsday scrolling, but have we ever sat down and really thought about this, thought about our actions? Like, as we're just sitting there thumbing through the Facebook or Instagram or TikTok feeds for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes while you're pooping, 30 minutes as you're trying to go to bed, 20 minutes as you're waking up, 10 minutes once you get to work, 20 minutes on your lunch break, 5 minutes when you get home, 5 minutes at dinner, 5 minutes before you shower, 5 minutes after you shower, you're still fucking scrolling. What good came of it? What did you learn? What benefit have you brought to society from you sitting on the crapper and doing this? Or if you're older, maybe you hold your phone and you scroll like this, right? We have encouraged computers to learn that the only thing we care about is hatred and violence and death and destruction. That's not a good precedent to set for AI when we want AI to learn about us and to help us. Well, if we just teach AI that we're a bunch of horrible individuals who only care about killing others, that doesn't leave a very good outlook for AI upon humans, does it? Now, all of this, in one way or another, I can pull back to the culture war. or woke politics, if you would like. I have this article here. Actually, let's pull this up, actually. I want to share a different image with you real quick. Give me just a second here. All right. So what is a culture war? According to Wikipedia, Lord forgive me for using Wikipedia as a definition source, but again, it's not a true definition or a true term per se. So that's why I'm okay with using Wikipedia for this definition. A culture war is a cultural conflict between social groups and the struggle for dominance of their values, beliefs, and practices. It commonly refers to topics on which there's general societal disagreement and polarization in societal values. I mean, like the abortion topic is number one that came to mind. Again, liberty versus tyranny. You've got people that want to be controlled by the government, and you got people that want to get rid of the government. And the culture war extends to almost every facet of your life that you can think of or imagine. We'll go to this article shortly over here from The Guardian. It's titled Everything You Wanted to Know About the Culture War. Let me make sure this pulls up for everybody. Very good. All right. Everything you want to know about the culture wars, but we're afraid to ask. Going to kind of scroll through here a little bit, skip a little bit. Okay. So these, along with the deathless headline, law student cleared after saying women have vaginas, were examples of what might be called skirmishes in a larger and ongoing series of battles, the culture wars. So what are they saying here? Apparently, and I actually heard this, it was either in a song or a joke or something the other day, but back in my day, people used to look up to Wonder Woman. Nowadays, people wonder what a woman is. This quote that someone else wrote might get me fucking banned, blacklisted, shadow banned. We're going to read it anyway, and we're going to talk about it. It says, or they write, law student cleared after saying women have vaginas. Apparently, that's controvertible. Apparently, there's people in the world that think that that is inaccurate. There are people in the world who would call women birthing people or womenixen. There are people today who no longer use the term women as they deem it to be offensive and exclusive. If you, I, or anyone 1,000 years ago, today, or 1,000 years in the future were to look at bones of the dead, we would say, this was a woman, she had a vagina. This was a man, he had a penis. Period. Some people today are so confused about the world that they think gender is something they control. There are some people who have gone so far off the deep end that they think men can give birth to babies. That's right. Now, for you rational-minded people out there, those of you with common sense, those of you who understand science, right? We know that this is a fallacy. We know that these people are fucking crazy. What kind of alternate reality do you really live in to even dare to say men can give birth, or to say that women have penises? No, you don't. Get over it. Get over yourself already. You narcissistic fools. All you can do, all this movement has led you people to, is being complete narcissists. You've shut out the rest of the world, and the only person in this world is you. The only person you care about is you. The only person whose thoughts, feelings, emotions, or hardships matter are yours, supposedly. I don't give a damn what you're going through. I've been through some of this shit. Here, we'll go ahead and tell a story. True story, by the way. Do you know why I knock on the LGBTQ agenda? Why I have such an issue with transgender ideology, with this gender non-conforming crap? Because I fell for it. Yeah, I got no shame in admitting it. I was fooled into this ideology temporarily. I would say some of the plot lines that the trans movement gives of why you have to transition are things that everyone experiences, they're things that most people experience at some point in their lives. Fair enough to say? Boys, at some point in your life, have you ever wanted to sit down to pee? Women, at some point in your life, have you ever wanted to stand up to pee? Boys, have you ever tried on or thought about wearing a girl's underwear? Girls, I know you wear guys' boxers. Let's not even start. You steal boys' hoodies, right? Okay. What am I trying to say here? I think at some point, we all have inclinations or questions about what are our interests. Does this interest me? Does this relate to me? Is this something that feels like a part of me or who I am? Is this normal to me? Right? I think there's things that the LGBTQ community would tell you that if you feel this way, you have to be trans. And I would argue and say, no. If you feel these things, you need to ask yourself more questions. Rather than going to someone to be told that you're correct, you need to stop and ask yourself more questions. Did I? No. That's why I'm here to give you advice from my own past. So what did I do? Did the same thing everyone else is told to do. I went to gender affirming care, and you know what they told me? You're exactly right. You want hormones? We'll put you on hormones right away. Yeah, no worries. You said everything that we need to hear as a psychologist. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get you the medicine. We'll go ahead and get you this life-altering medicine that is going to change your genetic makeup. And if you take it for too long, there's no turning back. Think about that. My psychiatrist and doctors told me, you are taking a drug that is going to alter the chemical makeup of your body. And if you take it for long enough, it is irreversible. You cannot go back to exactly what you were before once you've been on this for so long. Are you sure you want to start on hormones? I said, yes. Boy, I felt like a giddy little schoolgirl, forgive my euphemisms, as I left that office with my estradiol. Again, many of you may not believe it. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was fooled. And here's the most important part. I guess you could say I figured out what needed to be said. I learned what they wanted and needed to hear, and I learned the talking points that need to be heard in order for you to get moved up in your treatment progress. It's very similar to what happened with medical marijuana when it first happened to come into play in Colorado. Let me sideline for just a minute. when medical marijuana first became available, you know what you did? You went into the doctor's office. You basically made up some condition about why you need medical marijuana. And he said, oh, yep, I agree with you. You're sick. Here's your card. You can now grow like 12 ounces of plants at home, and you can go ahead and buy up to 2 ounces wherever you want. It was a joke. I would argue that probably 80% of the people that had their medical cards didn't actually qualify. They were just given out by the doctors. Okay, now how do I tie that back to this? I would argue, and again, this is backed up by studies and data, I would argue that if you had not pushed so many people down this very stringent, strict, and narrow pathway of affirming care, I believe, what am I trying to say here? I don't think that they left any options for seeking other type of treatment. Again, sorry, folks, kind of lost my train of thought. Hi, kitty cat. How you doing? Okay, so here's my question. How do I word this? Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Normally don't have this bad of a brain fart. Hi, kitty cat. Give me just a second. I'm gonna take a quick break. Be right back. Excuse me, kitty cat. Thank you. Be right back, folks. Hi. Can I sit down, too? Like this. It's a good girl. Okay, everybody. I'm back. Sorry about that. It's getting a little hot, making it a little hard to focus. All right. So where were we here? Right. Okay. So during my, we'll call it transition process, even though the only thing I did to transition was to essentially cross-dress and start the process towards getting hormones. Now, there came a point where I had to seriously ask myself, again, after they gave me these hormones, I was excited to take them. I was excited to go along with what I had been told was what I should do, that I was following the right path because I felt like everyone else, right? I was having so many experiences that all these other trans people were having. So I should just continue down the path. But I had some serious questions that I don't think most of you trans folks have asked yourself seriously, especially those under the age of 18. The question for me was, well, let me preface a little bit. Again, if you take hormones, I don't care what everyone else out there is telling you. I will tell you, from having medical training to be an EMT, and from other doctors who have cited out of medical journals and published studies, that hormones will disrupt your body. They are not reversible. You can make the argument that if you take hormones for a small amount of time, a small amount of dose, and that if you change back soon enough, yeah, maybe there will be little to no effect. However, if you're a man and you take estrogen for years, there's no coming back to what you were before. Period. Simply put, that's the truth. Same with having a sex change. You want to have your penis cut up and turned inside out into a vagina? Cool, if you're an adult. But guess what? When you do decide to detransition, you're not going to get your penis back. Sure, they can do the reverse surgery and turn your deformed vagina back into a deformed penis, but this time it's not going to be your original penis, it's not going to be the original skin, and you're going to have to graft skin from another part of your body to make up your penis. And it will not function the way it did before. It will not. I don't care who tells you otherwise. Even if you go through the process smoothly of just transitioning from one to the other, you're probably not going to have sexual functions from your parts. It's almost like 50% don't have sexual pleasure or functionality with their transitioned parts. So, if we're going to talk about this, let's talk about it, right? They said, law student cleared after saying women have vaginas. That is absolutely correct. Women have vaginas, men have penises. You can medically change things and make them look different, but they will not be functional anymore. You can turn a penis into a vagina, but you're never going to have a baby. You can turn a vagina into a penis. You're never going to have a 100%, real working stem and balls. That's the truth, folks. Argue me. Bring the science. Bring the data. That's right. You don't have it on your side because I just brought it to you. And this is just one thing in the culture war. And this one won't go away. Some people are so far gone, so fucking crazy, that they really believe that you can just take hormones on and off and you can be a different gender every day and it's not going to affect you and you're going to be perfect. You people have been lied to. You people are idiots. Let's read a little bit more because there's a little bit more down in here that I wanted to read. According to the Policy Institute, a quarter of the articles it analyzed took the position that culture wars are either overblown or manufactured to exist at all. If that's just the media being contrary, then take a look at the public at large. In a Times radio poll conducted in February, respondents were asked, when politicians talk about a culture war, what do you think they mean? And only 7% came up with a relevant answer. 15% got it wrong, and a slightly concerning 76% said they didn't know. So think about that. 75% of the people in America right now probably don't know that there's a culture war happening and that it involves every facet of your life. Every single facet at this point. Which has led us to woke politics, right? We have to virtue signal by hiring LGBTQ people. We have to start affirmative action. We have to start these green global initiatives. We have to push LGBTQ rights in fucking Botswana. And what has all this led to? It's led to race riots at schools. Ha! I bet you didn't think you'd hear me saying that one. especially to folks who are my parents' age. You know, my mom went to a high school where there was a race riot, where all of the black students, one day at one specific time, decided to ditch whatever class they were in. And you know what they did? They rampaged throughout the school and beat the fuck out of every single white person in that building. And you know what happened? Nothing. No black person was held accountable. No thug was held accountable. No criminal was held accountable. All their crimes were forgiven. Why? Because they were black. Is that not racist? If a bunch of white people just randomly go and beat the fuck out of a bunch of black people, aren't you going to scream racism? So where are you with these race riots at schools? Not just public schools, not just private schools, at colleges. Colleges in left-wing states even. For those of you who scream racism, you never seem to admit when there's actual racism afoot. You people that scream racism or this person's some type of phobic, you're the problem. You people have led to this kind of situation. Why do you think it's okay for us to have race riots at school? Why do you think it's okay? Because this is something in the news now, that black colleges want to segregate black and white students. There's some other colleges that simply want to separate black and white education or black and white housing, like student housing. And there's some frat groups that exclude based on race. So for all of you people out there screaming about racism in the fucking ether when it's not actually happening, where are you on these actual instances of racism? There's a reason why when you little fuckheads that scream racism and Nazis are everywhere, there's a reason why when you say that, I roll my eyes and laugh at you. I spit in your direction. Because you're just lying. You're lying for attention. You're lying for manipulation. You're lying because you're misinformed. And you're lying because your worldview has it so fucking twisted that even when reality slaps you in the face, you can't feel it. You don't see it. You don't recognize it. Let me think. There was one more thing I wanted to pull from this article. All right. Well, I think that's all the good stuff we'll pull from this article. Man, I had another article pulled up here, although it's pretty late for it. But just to remind you all, when I was talking about COVID and our response to it, Trump was not perfect. He had a plan and it probably would have done better than Biden's plan. However, Trump started us into this hellhole that was COOF and our reactions to it. Donald Trump put people into positions of authority in the medical industry. Like Deborah Birx was one of them. Let me pull here. When Birx, a physician with a background in HIV and AIDS research, was named coordinator of the task force in February, she was widely praised as a tough, indefatigable manager and a voice data-driven reason. Sorry, folks. Let me take one more quick break. My cat needs a little help. Her tail's bugging her. Be right back. You okay? You okay? Alrighty, everybody. I apologize. That cat, she's just my best friend. Got to make sure she's doing okay. So, again, Trump, I wish they named some of these people, says interviews with 9 current CDC employees, several of them senior agency leaders, 20 former agency leaders, and public health experts. Suggests Burke's hospital data takeover fits a pattern in which she opposed CDC guidance, sometimes promoting Trump's policies or views against scientific consensus. Basically, what I'm getting at here is Trump put people in office to deal with COVID who only exacerbated it. Trump, in my opinion, was never the perfect solution, right? Too many people hate him for this reason, that reason, or the other. The reason I voted for him is because not only was he attacked by the deep state to such a degree that he probably understands what he's up against in Washington better than any other politician will. I mean, think about it. If Ron DeSantis becomes president, he's going to have to fight the deep state just as Trump did. And what's going to happen? Well, he's not going to get much done. Same with Trump. Whereas Trump, who has already fought the deep state, who has already realized their shadow campaigns and the power that they hold, he realizes the effect that they can have. He realizes the wall that he's up against. I mean, think about it. He's been beaten down for the last 3 years, 7 altogether, by the deep state. This guy understands these assholes so well. Trump probably understands the deep state better than you or I do, to some degree. Again, he's a bit of a clown. He's a bit of a fool. He's a bit pompous. However, if you're choosing generals to go fight your war for you, you want a general who's been to war against the enemy you're fighting, or you want someone who's never been in the military before to lead your army? You want someone experienced, right? To me, it makes more sense that if we know whatever Republican candidate, if any candidate gets elected, it's the deep state that runs the country. The only person that I see qualified, able to, or has understanding or know-how of this shadow government is Trump. The only person that has the gall, the audacity, and the nerve to go up against the system is Trump. Now, yeah, I would prefer DeSantis too, right? He looks more professional. He acts and talks more professional. He's done great at governing Florida, especially throughout COVID. He did a much better job of handling COVID than Trump did. But DeSantis has his issues too, and he's not perfect either. And if he were to go up against the deep state, I don't see him getting any further than Trump did. He'll make a little bit of headway with a couple of policies, and then he's going to get beaten down by the people that work in the black suits that work behind the scenes. I mean, God, even Putin knows about it. Even Putin jokes about it. He's said something to the effect of like, I know that when the president's in the room, that's not really who I'm talking to. It's the people that come in afterwards in the suits that control the country. And so all of that has led to race riots at schools because we can't tell right from wrong anymore. We can't tell good from evil. Apparently, good is evil and evil is good. And that's brought fruition to groups such as Antifa and BLM. Now, the first reason I hate Antifa is because they are copycats of a real movement. Back in 1940s Germany, there was a movement called Antifaschistische Action, and they were anti-fascist. Hitler was a fascist. So I think we could all agree that they were probably for the better. Nowadays, this group who wears all black, disguises their identity so that way they can commit crimes and not be held accountable, they call themselves Antifa. Antifa, and however you want to pronounce it. They're a bunch of woke, white, progressive liberals, generally speaking, who hate the country they live in. And they're usually fat, overweight, have blue or green hair, maybe purple. They always dress in all black so that you can't see their identity. And they never want to have a conversation with you. They only want to dictate by force. They only want to exclude. And I will remind you of some of these exact examples. Now, I have to tie them in with BLM. Fuck BLM and fuck Antifa. Now, by BLM, I mean the corporation. Of course, Black Lives Matter, you idiot. If you need a fucking slogan to tell you that, you might be a racist. Black lives have always mattered. Everyone's fucking life has always mattered. Again, if you need a slogan to reiterate that for you, you might be the problem. I have to tie them in together because throughout the summer of love of 2020, but ever since 2013, 2014, Antifa and BLM have started to intertwine by being anti-protesters, or, essentially they go to legal protests held by people on the right, and these people start fights because they don't like political opinions on the right, or they murder people because they don't like their political opinions, or they beat people with bike locks because they don't like their opinions, or they set cities on fire because they don't like the other side's opinions, or they beat you into submission because they don't want to talk to you, they just want to kill you, or they'll set a whole fucking city on fire and there'll be a reporter on live television telling you in front of a burning building and a burning car that it's just a mostly peaceful protest. Antifa and BLM, just in the summer of 2020, caused over $2 billion worth of damage in the riots. Now, that's just what the insurance companies were willing to pay. How many of you knew that Antifa and BLM actually caused somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 billion worth of damage across the country? But the insurance companies were only willing to pay out $2 billion worth of damages. Antifa and BLM get private access to private communities where they break the law to enter these properties and continue to break the law as they traipse through these communities. And then when law-abiding citizens defend their home and property from people who have broken and entered, the law-abiding citizens get arrested. Antifa and BLM, they've killed over 30 people directly or indirectly at or near their protest sites, at or near the places that they stole land from you and I, American citizens. In Portland, Oregon, they set up autonomous zones. And you know what Antifa and BLM did? The people who hate colonialism and white people in America, guess what they did? They set up borders. I thought borders were racist. No, they set up borders and checkpoints. Think about this. You had to have an ID that they agreed with, that they approved of, just to go into this autonomous zone. Well, I thought autonomous means I don't belong to any government. So aren't I just free to go? No. Only the people they want. Wow. For all those Democrats, all those commies, all those socialists and anarchists who scream about how bad America is because she's racist, because we want to have closed borders. We want to have identification for people to vote. We want to have law enforcement. We're racist for that. But guess what Antifa and BLM do the very second that they steal ground from us? They build borders. They keep out police. They carry weapons illegally. They check IDs. If they don't like your ID, you're not welcome. They extort businesses. They'll protect you only if you provide them money or resources. If not, your shit will be vandalized. You might get killed. Let's not forget that thanks to Antifa and BLM, Black people were murdered. The very people these people were trying to defend, they murdered. An officer named David Dorn was murdered by arsonists and looters and rioters. He was an off-duty cop defending a store from being looted, and a bunch of Black people murdered him. What do you know? It's the statistics. A bunch of Black people killed another Black person. Who do Black people need to be most afraid of? Other Black men, statistically speaking. And where was BLM to cry for David Dorn? Where was BLM to march for David Dorn? Where was BLM to scream David Dorn's name in the street? Where was BLM to demand justice for the killers of David Dorn? Oh, that's right. Black Lives Matter doesn't give a fuck about Black lives, because Black Lives Matter is a fucking abhorrent organization. It's a criminal enterprise that only goes to give Patrisse Cullors rich houses. The rest of you Black people, you don't matter. Remember, if you're a Black conservative, you're not real, according to the Democrats. Now, you may have been told from mainstream media news organizations over the years that Antifa and BLM were the peacekeepers and that it was the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers you had to worry about because they're like KKK groups and they're such Nazis. Except, you know, had any of you been paying attention, had any of you watched the videos, had any of you spent the countless hours and days that it actually takes to inform yourself on these topics, you could have seen for yourself on YouTube that the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, 98% of the time, marching down the street, waving their American flags behind them. Maybe sometimes they'd have cars in the procession, big loud trucks with big flags, and they peacefully protested. Cool. Nothing wrong with that. I got no problem with that. Oh, that's right. The media forgot to tell you that it was then that Antifa started gearing up and putting on their all-Black uniforms, started putting on their gas masks and their ballistic helmets. They started pulling out knives, pepper spray, fireworks, knives, guns, bear mace, bike locks. And you know what Antifa started to do? Not only did they disrupt the peaceful protests and start premeditatively, mind you, attacking free and independent citizens who were legally and peacefully protesting, they shut this protest down because they didn't like the political opinions of the other side. That is fascism. Using political force to shut down your political opponents is fascist tactics. You not having the fucking balls to sit there and listen to someone who disagrees with you just goes to show what a pussy you are. If you can't stand to hear someone say that they disagree with you, walk away. Holy shit, was that hard? Someone says something you don't like, ignore them. Walk away. What fucking point do you have to prove? What argument are you going to win? Oh, that's right. They don't want to win arguments. They want to kill you and silence you. Where's my proof for this? Because I'm sure YouTube wants to flag me. Oh, that's right. YouTube, let me remind you that on your platform, it was live streamed during the Summer of Love in Portland, Oregon, goddamn 2020. A fucking leftist hunted down and murdered a Trump supporter in the streets of Portland for no other reason simply than, quote, "We have a Trumper here. Bang, bang." And he died. The left screams that they're under attack, that there's a genocide against leftists. There's a genocide against trans people. Where? Can anyone fucking show me where? Where's one person that has been martyred? Hello? Anybody home? Nobody? Oh, because there's no real answer. What do you know? Antifa and BLM, they are the modern day brown shirts or the Gestapo. Antifa and BLM, they are the communist, socialist, radical, Marxist thugs who would come and destroy you for having an opinion. They do not care to debate with you. They only care to silence you. Excuse me. Think about it. These people don't allow journalists to film what they do. If you're proud of what you're doing, you should want others to know. You should want what you're doing to be filmed. That way people can come support you. But if you're doing something that you know shouldn't be filmed, and you advise against filming it, at what point do we charge anyone flying the Antifa flag with treason? At what point do we anyone flying a flag in support of BLM or Antifa, you are lost. You're confused. You're uneducated and misinformed. You are, simply put, an idiot if you believe that Antifa or BLM can do any kind of good for society. If you're a part of Antifa or BLM, you are a waste of space. You are the problem in this country, and you're not welcome here. I don't want you here. If you hate America so much, leave. If you want socialism, come here. I'll help you pack your bags. I'll put your toothpaste in a nice little disposable bag with your toothbrush. I'll get all your toiletries wrapped up all nice. You want to go? You want to have socialism? I will pack your shit and send you to Venezuela. You can go eat dogs in the streets while your leaders sit fat in their fucking high atop the city in their mansions, eating as much as they like, spending all the money they want, sleeping with all the women they want, while you have nothing and you're eating dogs in the street. If you want socialism, get the fuck out of here. I don't want you here. You want socialism, go enjoy it. Don't bring it here. No. Fuck your socialism. Fuck your communism. You want to be a communist? Go be free. There's communist places all around the world. You want to be a communist? Go to Laos. Go ahead, go to Cambodia. Again, I will buy you toiletries. I will buy you new underwear. Just fucking get out of here. You hate America and you want to be a communist? Go live with the communists in fucking Cambodia, in Laos. Oh, is that too hard? You don't want to do that. So then why the fuck do you think it's fair to make me suffer with your shithole ideology that has never worked? It's never gonna work. It's never worked. And every time it fails, you just say, well, we didn't try it the right way. Oh, we didn't have the right leader. Well, it wasn't implemented right. Well, this held us up. No. Your policies suck. Think about that. Your ideology sucks. It has no foothold in reality. Yes, you can raise your family like in a communist style. And perhaps that is good. To each their needs, right? You cannot scale socialism, communism, or Marxism to a continent or a global, I mean, there's no way you can spread it across the globe. It does not scale up. Too many people will be dissenters. Too many people do not believe that you can achieve utopia by forcing people to hate each other. That's what utopia is to communists and socialists. It's hating all of the others, and you don't have utopia until you get rid of all the others. Communism and socialism are nothing but mass murder objectives. If you feel so strongly that America has it wrong, then what are you doing here? Why do you have to make it suck for me? I like it here. I like the Constitution. I like freedom and liberty. I like that we have restrictions to freedom. Freedom is not freedom to, it's freedom from. It takes a certain amount of responsibility to attain it. Individual responsibility and accountability. So now that leads me into the next few topics, which are called, they're quoted as DEI. I wish the acronym was DIE. That way these fucking stupid ideologies can go to die, as they should. So we're going to talk about die and how it needs to die. What is die? Well, we're talking about Joe Biden's pogrom of diversity, equality, and inclusion. The fuck does that even mean? Okay, well, let's start breaking it down. Bear with me a moment. Let's get some definitions up here. Because you know me, I like to be specific. And if we're going to make a point, let's be very specific. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and try and pull up definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That way we cannot disagree on what they mean. Now, you know me, I prefer Merriam-Webster. So we're going to look up diversity. Merriam-Webster, diversity. Let's share this so that way you know I'm not lying to you. Fair? All right. All right, according to Merriam-Webster, the definition of diversity is the condition of having or being composed of differing elements, variety especially. The inclusion of people of different races. See Race Entry 1, Sense 1A. It is the inclusion of people of different races, cultures, etc. in a group or organization programs intended to promote diversity in schools. The inclusion of people of different races. Diversity. I find that interesting. To say that America needs diversity, I mean, the fallacy, the hypocriticalness, the oxymoronical statement that is within itself. You want more diversity. How fucking blind are you? Do you realize we live in America? Do you realize there's several races of people? We have every race imaginable that lives here. We have every sex or gender that lives here. We have every national creed, religion, ethics, morals. Everyone here is diverse. It's America. It's a diverse melting pot. Excuse me. And to say that diversity needs to be forced upon the masses because America's not diverse enough. What? What? What kind of idiot says that? What kind of idiot looks around at the diversity of America and says, nope, we're too homoerogenous. We're too much the same. We need diversity. Does that give you a hint at how fucking lost the left is? I'm sorry, Democrats. You're now getting lumped in with the left. And the left includes the far lefts, the socialists, the Marxists, the crazy people that hate America. Sorry, basic Democrats, basic liberals like Joe Rogan, Dave Rubin. You guys are part of the problem too. You let the left, the far left, take your name and run with it. And they ran with it so far that you had no option left but to stick with them, because you couldn't define your own lane anymore. You couldn't stand up for liberal values anymore. The few of you that do, what are you doing? Are you actually changing your party back to liberal values? No. You're the same thing that Republicans are to Democrats. You're nothing more than a speed bump for their total agenda down the road. All right. That's diversity. Diversity, we're going to do a die because I want it to go die. So we'll do inclusion next. What does inclusion mean according to Merriam-Webster's? According to Merriam-Webster's, the act of including, or the state of being included. Something that is included, such as a gaseous, liquid, or solid for a body enclosed in a mass, a passive, usually temporary product of cell activity, such as a starch grain within the cytoplasm or nucleus. Inclusion, the act of including, or the state of being included, or something that is included. That sounds, again, very obvious. Did you know that if you live in America, you are included as an American? Holy shit. Who would have thought that? That by living here, you're part of something. You're part of something greater than any country has ever achieved, ever. You've done more for the rights of all humanity than any country ever. Because you are included as an American. As an American, it doesn't matter your race, your religion, your national creed, your morals, your ethics. You are included to the same rights and constitutional amendments and expectations as every other American. Again, how do you argue for inclusion without recognizing the world around you? Yes, of course, people get excluded from things all of the time. That comes down to choice and preference. I mean, think about it. The military won't allow in people with less than, what is it, like an IQ of 80? Because you're too stupid. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but if you got an IQ, I think it's lower than 80, it's been deemed that there is no job that you can possibly do that would not be a waste of your time. Meaning, there's nothing you can do that would be productive in any way. And that's about 10% of the population. And that's just how it is. Not everyone is going to be included all the time. If you try to force inclusion, you force exclusion. I don't know how people got so fucking back. Like, apparently people got so backwards from reality because people can't do what I'm doing. A simple 5-second lookup of a definition to make sure you absolutely understand what you're talking about. Now, for the last part of this that needs to go die: diversity, inclusion, equity. Equity. The meaning of equity, according to Merriam-Webster, it is a justice according to natural law or right. Specifically, freedom from bias or favoritism, or they also define it as the money value of a property or of an interest in a property in excess of claims or liens against it. Yeah, monetarily anyway. Actually, this might be good. Definition 3 for equity. A system of law originating in the English Chancery and comprising a settled and formal body of legal and procedural rules and doctrines that supplement, aid, or override common and statute law and are designed to protect rights and enforce duties fixed by substantive law. Trial or remedial justice under or by the rules and doctrines of equity, or a body of legal doctrines and rules developed to enlarge, supplement, or override a narrow, rigid system of law. There's one other thing I want to pull up for you. All right. So I'm sure many people have seen this, but I think it needs to be brought up again. Here is what we're talking about when we speak of equality versus equity. Equality is what we should achieve. Equality of opportunity. You will never achieve equality of outcome unless you force equity. Equality means everyone gets the same because we are all the same. Everyone goes to the baseball game and they all get one box to stand on. And that's great for the dad. That's great for the teenage son. But the young son, the one box, it's not big enough for him to be able to see over the fence and watch the game. That's not fair, as some people would say. So how would some people fix this? Some people would fix this with equity. What does that mean? Well, it's a sneaky term for communism or socialism. What do I mean by that? What does socialism or communism do? They steal everything from the people and take that power for themselves. So with equity, sure, now the little kid can see the baseball game, but why? Oh, it's because the state has come in and forced the son and the father to give up their boxes. They don't need them. So therefore, the state demands that they go to this little boy so that he can watch the game. That way it's fair for everybody. Then again, life's not fair, is it? Some people get in car accidents not every day, but there are car accidents every day. Some people die and some people don't. Why do some people die? It's not fair. Some people are assaulted every day. Some people aren't. Where's the equity? Why isn't everyone being assaulted? Equity is a damnable idea. It's dangerous. If you're trying to promote equity, you're taking away freedom and opportunity and choices. If you're taking equity versus equality, you're saying, actually, let me kind of reverse this. If you're for equality, you, I would assume, like me, have the moral aptitude to say, equality means we each get one box to view the game. And guess what? I see that you're a little too short and that your one box isn't high enough. I choose to help you out. Now, I may not choose to help you out because you may be acting like a little piece of shit. I get to choose whether or not I want or can help you. The state does not get to determine and mandate that I have to help you whether or not I can with my own resources. And that's right. In communism, you don't own resources. That's what equity is. You will own nothing, like the father here. You will be happy about it. Americans should fight for equality of opportunity. If everyone has the same fighting chance, then only the best will make it through. And that's what you want. You don't want a bunch of losers who are unqualified and incapable to do the thing that needs doing. All right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion need to die. They're stupid, moronic words, stupid verbs that mean nothing. They're used oxymoronically. There's no point to even saying them. I mean, just saying them in itself shows your ignorance of the world around you. You cannot tell that we are born with equal rights under the Constitution. We are a diverse people, and everyone is included in the ups, the downs, the good, the bad. So we've talked about the COOF, the pandemic response. Tried to remind you of the shut-ins and the lockouts that happened not only here, but in China, where New York politicians thought it was okay to lock up the Jews. I thought we learned after one genocide not to do that to a group of people. Apparently, we didn't learn our lesson. We talked about the algorithm influences and how intersectionalism has also played into that. How all of these have not only been subtopics in the culture war, but of woke politics, and how all of this, in one sense or another, has helped lead to race riots at schools. Same with the actions of Antifa and BLM, or the initiatives of the diversity, inclusion, and equality movement. These are all topics of the culture war. And we still have 15, 20 topics to go of things in the culture war. And that's not even touching all of them. So I'd ask you at this point, between my last video where we talked about forest fire prevention in California and Colorado, factory explosions in Chicago, Pennsylvania, and Beirut, where we talked about plant and herbal potting store supply fires, or the power grid attacks, or the train derailments, or when we were talking about chicken farms fires, or the chicken farm mass cullings due to avian flu. During any of these topics, have you heard about them? Have they impacted your life in any way? Have you asked any of the questions that I've asked? Have any of the questions that you've had been answered by folks like me or others? Did I at least provide you with one thing that you haven't heard about? Have you learned something today? That's all I ask, is that I bring you something new, is that I bring something new to your attention, so we might all learn together. Well, we're about to start going back in time again to 2020 and talking about some of the things that happened regarding the election, the riots, talking about our current president and our former president. If y'all don't mind, I'd say let's take a, what do you say, maybe 5 to 10 minute break here. I will be back shortly. Just hang out. Feel free to just let's chat down below in the comments section while we're taking a break. I'm just gonna go and get some water, get a snack, maybe go have a smoke, and then I'll be back. I'll see you guys here in a few minutes. All right, everybody, back again. Thanks for your patience. Not gonna lie, a little hard to talk this long without having to drink water or anything, so I had to take a quick break. Quench my thirst, as it was. Make sure we get back online here. All right, good to go. All right, so let's continue. This next group of topics, we're gonna go back to 2020. And let's start with the riots of 2020 and delve into them a little bit more. In 2020, we saw a marked rise, we'll call it, of street fighting between, a couple of politically motivated groups, we'll call it. Again, like I said previously, you started to see groups like the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys fighting with groups such as Antifa or BLM protesters, usually in the streets of Portland or California or Washington. But this did take place in other places across the country. It started out as mostly peaceful protests until George Floyd died, and then all hell broke loose. Then it was mass looting, mass shoplifting. We had people trying to burn down gas stations. People that did burn down gas stations. We had news reporters on live television in front of burning buildings with cars on fire in the background saying, yeah, it's mostly peaceful here. I mean, things haven't gotten too crazy. It's peaceful protest here. What? When people win the Stanley Cup, we're talking about professional hockey. When people win the Stanley Cup, they flip cars and set them on fire, and they call that a riot. How are people running through the streets, destroying public property, private property, gas stations, setting shit on fire, pulling people from their cars, beating them with bike locks? How is that not a riot? I would remind you that if you tried to do research on right-wing extremism, or more specifically on left-wing extremism, it's funny. I forget the name of the company. They're doing studies on all of the right-wing violence in the country. It was funny. When you clicked on left-wing violence, nothing at all. Not one person ever anywhere. Well, that's weird. That's weird because so many of these recent mass shooters have been proven to be far leftists, far left ideologues. I would remind you that, again, BLM and Antifa stole land from America and they claimed it as autonomous zones. And what did they do? They erected borders. They established their own police force. They demanded identification. If they didn't like you, you were evicted. If you owned a business, you had to give them money for protection. Otherwise, they would just come in and destroy your business because you didn't fund their pogrom. They would kill you if you were in their territory. They would kill you if you were outside their territory. They would pull you from your vehicle. Let me remind you, you could be peacefully driving down the streets on your way to work. And then this mob of rioters who have illegally taken over the city streets. Mind you, if you're doing a peaceful protest, you're confined to the sidewalks, not the streets. If you want to go to the streets, you face misdemeanor charges, more or less. Were any of them arrested? Nope, not once. So apparently it's legal now, according to how the left was treated. Apparently it's legal to block traffic and pull people from their cars and beat them with bike locks simply because they're a car on the road. This person wasn't driving at you. They weren't driving toward you. They weren't speeding. They weren't gunning for you. They didn't have weapons. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And yet you assholes who are already breaking the law, who continue to break the law, who are in the process of committing felonies, those people got the clearance. That's right. Don't forget. If a mob of people descended upon you and your vehicle to kill you, you had to let it happen. I mean, we just saw recently a former cop was convicted of first-degree murder because he defended his life against a protester. A protester? No. This man defended his life against a armed insurrectionist who had his rifle at the ready coming upon this guy's car. The guy with the rifle got shot because it looked like he was going to go and shoot the guy in the car. And gee, why would the guy in the car think he's going to get shot? Oh, I don't know. Again, maybe if you had paid attention to the news, you would have known or understood that even just 2 weeks prior to this incident that I'm talking about, there was the Provo, I think it was Provo, Utah incident. A guy is peacefully driving down the streets. He's just caught in his vehicle as the fucking rioters come illegally marching through the streets. They just walked up to his car and executed him. Just walked up to his car, put a gun up to the window, bang, bang, bang. Murdered him in cold blood. Why? There was no reason. He wasn't driving at them. He wasn't driving towards them. This man didn't have a weapon. This man wasn't in drive. Armed leftists who took over the streets, who were abusing every law in the books and not being held to account. They got the pass. Kyle Rittenhouse, almost murdered 3 times. Had to put his life on the line 3 times in self-defense. And yet there were people that called him a white supremacist terrorist that killed black people. He killed 2 pedophiles and a white guy. And shot another white guy. Killed 2 pedophiles. That's also what the riots of 2020 led up to. Kyle Rittenhouse. Because these goddamned insurrectionists, these rioters, these terrorists were allowed to eviscerate our country and burn it to the ground without fear of being arrested or held liable for their actions. Normal citizens like you and I were forced to defend our neighborhood, our businesses, and our public and city streets and other people's lives. And what did we get for it? We get thrown in jail. Because the cops won't do their job, and we have to do their job for them, we're in trouble. Because if we want to go by my counts, almost 60 people were murdered because of Black Lives Matter and Antifa during and surrounding the 2020 riots. At least 14 of those were black people. Did you hear Black Lives Matter march in the streets, scream their name, demand justice for any one of these people that they killed themselves? No. I mentioned to you earlier David Dorn, a black retired police officer who was working security for one of these stores when these insurrectionists, these terrorists came through and killed him so that they could steal someone else's property. They killed David Dorn, and the only people who said his name were the people on the right. How dare you leftists? How dare you bastards in BLM and that would support BLM? How dare you try to claim some kind of moral high ground when you won't even say his name, when you won't even condemn the people that killed him, when you won't even go after the people that killed him? Black Lives Matter is a joke. Black Lives Matter is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Again, if you need someone to tell you that Black Lives Matter, you are dumb. You are ignorant. You are a fool. If you didn't already have that established into your heart and soul when you were born, that everyone's lives matters equally, you're the problem. There's something wrong with you, bud. They stole ground. They stole ground from you and implemented the same policies that they would call you and I a racist for. And how did their economy fare? None of them lasted more than a few weeks. None of them gained a significant population. It all led to death and destruction. Oh, yeah. How many of you remembered people from Antifa trying to farm? Let me remind you what these idiots did. Antifa and BLM, the fools that think you should follow them because they know the way to utopia. Those who would condemn, like, again, the far left and its ideology has made farming in the Netherlands illegal. Dutch farmers are no longer allowed to harvest their crops. If they try or if they protest, they'll be shot at by the government. It's funny because that same ideology that wants to take over here, these people, Antifa and BLM, at these riots and these autonomous zones they set up, they tried to farm. They wanted self-sustainable food, right? You know, you want to know how these idiots tried to grow food? They put down tarp on top of blacktop. In the middle of the street, they put a tarp down. And on top of the tarp, they put some dirt and some potting soil. And then they put some seeds on there. Holy shit. Have you never even seen a kids movie where they depict farming? Like, first of all, if you want your plants to grow roots, you need to plant them in the ground. You may plant something in this dirt and it may start to branch out and start to grow roots, but it's not going to hold because roots don't hold a plastic tarp. Sure, we can have the argument that maybe 10, 15, 20 years down the road, those roots might penetrate the tarp. Okay, so now the tarp is still on top of blacktop. So we're talking about another 20, 30 years before those roots get through the blacktop. We're assuming that the plants that they, or the crops that they planted are still alive at this point. Do you see what idiots these bastards are? These assholes that want to lead you to utopia can't even build, they can't even grow a type of food. Let alone they were trying to grow like 15 types of food on this little tiny pile of dirt. You don't understand a fucking thing about the world around you. And that's the problem with the left. Yes, the Democrats, the left, the far left, you Democratic Catholics, you people don't understand reality. You people are objectively wrong in damn near everything that you've been saying the last 3-4 years. Now, these riots, what do they lead to? Well, they led to election law changes. Now, let me pull this up for you because I'm sure YouTube would love to try and pull me down for this. Even though we've got the proof, we have the left admitting to what they did. Let's pull up. Pull it up here so we can all look at it together. I'm going to take you back in time to a news article that was posted by the magazine, The Times, titled Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election. And this was written, let's see here. Oh, come on, Internet, you can do better than this. This was written February 4th, 2021, 3 weeks after Biden was elected or put in office. A weird thing happened right after the November 3rd election. Nothing. The nation was braced for chaos. Liberal groups had vowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias were girding for battle. In a poll before Election Day, 75% of Americans voiced concerns about violence. Instead, an eerie quiet descended. As President Trump refused to concede, the response was not mass action, but crickets. When media organizations called the race for Joe Biden on November 7th, agitation broke out as people thronged cities across the U.S. to celebrate the democratic process that resulted in Trump's ouster. Or there's people like me, not that I believed the big lie pushed by Trump, but there was certainly some irregularities around this election. I did not break out in jubilation across the U.S. because of this election. The first thing that went to my mind was, why are there videos of poll workers scanning documents tens of times, grabbing a stack, putting it in the vote counting machine, grabbing it out from the bottom, putting it back in, grabbing it out from the bottom, putting it back in, grab from the bottom, put it back in? It was a little suspicious. It was also a little suspicious how all of the Republican poll watchers, all of them in every state, they weren't allowed to get within, 20 or 25 feet? Again, if you're a poll watcher, you're supposed to stand close enough that you can certify that that a signature matches a signature, that the information matches the information that should be there, that everything is filled out properly. If I don't have my glasses on, 20 to 25 feet away, I can't tell a fucking thing that you're writing. Even with my glasses on, at 20, 25 feet away, I can't fucking verify the things that you're writing or that are written down. I need to be within peering distance of you, within 6 feet. But because of COVID, the poll workers had to be kept further away. So we couldn't really verify what the poll workers were doing. We couldn't really verify why these poll workers were putting in stacks of ballots repeatedly into the same machine. We couldn't answer why poll workers would pull stacks of papers from under their desk and put them in the election machine. We couldn't explain how multiple truckloads of shipments came in after hours in illegally marked containers that were then counted. I'm not saying that illegal things took place. I'm saying there are some things that did not line up with the laws we have, and there were some questions that right off the bat, people like I had. We were not in jubilation. Fuck Joe Biden. They continue. A second odd thing happened amid Trump's attempts to reverse the result. Corporate America turned on him. Hundreds of major business leaders, many of whom had backed Trump's candidacy and supported his policies, called on him to concede. To the president, something felt amiss. It was all very, very strange, Trump said on December 2nd. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were still being counted. That's true. Everyone wanted Trump to just give up the election, because if Trump didn't give up, he was never going to give up. Remember? They told you he was a fascist. He's never going to leave office. We're going to have to hold some kind of military power over him to get him to leave office. And then, that's right. He left of his own accord. Are you still going to try and say he's a fascist? Because a fascist would not have left office. A fascist would have said, to hell with your voting system. I'm better than your voting system is, and I'm going to stay in power. That's what a fascist would have done. They say, in a way, Trump was right. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and AFL-CIO published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. How many of you can read between the lines? How many of you can tell what was said there? I'll break it down. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes. So for all of you that would call MAGA supporters conspiracy theorists for not trusting the election, they admit it right here. We involved ourselves in a conspiracy behind the scenes that involved the protests and coordinated resistance from CEOs. They say there was an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. They forget to mention state legislatures, federal judges, federal courts. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce published on Election Day. I wonder why they kept it quiet. Is it maybe because they didn't want to admit to interference? They say both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests. They're saying left-wing activists and CEOs and major politicians essentially wanted to silence Trump because somehow these racial justice protests were his fault. And who led this war against Trump? The forces of labor, aka the socialists, the communists, the far-left Democrats. They came together with the forces of capital. In other words, right-wing or rhino, fake Republicans who have a whole bunch of money in business ventures, and they agreed that to keep the peace, they had to assault Trump's assault on democracy. It's funny that for Trump assaulting democracy, all he ever did was try to make peace with other countries, defend American lives, and improve life for American citizens. What has Joe Biden done for us? Besides allow our country to be overrun with illegal migrants, allow a failed withdrawal from Afghanistan in which he allowed 13 service members to be killed when, let me remind you, before Afghanistan withdrawal, no service members had died in the year beforehand. But all of a sudden, Joe Biden takes the helm and we lose 13 service members. Sounds a lot like Benghazi, doesn't it? They continue in their article. They say, the handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign. Oh, get this stupid ad out of here. Don't care about Joe Biden or that fucking rainbow flag. The handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election. An extraordinary shadow effort decided not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free, fair, credible, and uncorrupted. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up Americans' institutions as they came under simultaneously attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. Though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines, with crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. The scenario the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all. A failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. Once again, could you read between the lines? Do you read the devilishness of what they're saying? Of what they're admitting to? Let's break it down. The handshake between the communists and we'll just call them the deep state, the secret handshake between the commies, the lefties, and the deep state, it was to protect the election, to ensure that it would be free, fair, credible, and uncorrupted. I'm sorry, but if you're in a conspiracy to alter the course of an election, I don't think that you can dare to say that it was A, uncorrupted, or B, credible, or C, fair. Might have still been free because we all still voted, allegedly. But what about all the dead people that voted that we have proof for? What about all the people that voted from addresses that don't exist that we have proof for, thanks to reporters like Steven Crowder? For more than a year, this coalition of operatives, they scrambled to shore up America's institutions. As they say, they came under attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. God, that just sounds so heartfelt. What a load of shit. Let me tell you what they're really trying to say. For more than a year, operatives found ways, using America's own legal systems, to subvert America's constitutional process and elections process. Though much of this activity took place on the left, which they admit, they say it was separate from the Biden campaign and that it crossed ideological lines. Well, it's just a lie. Why would anyone except the Biden campaign push this narrative against Trump? Because Biden wanted to win. Nothing else makes sense. Of course, the Biden campaign was involved in this. Of course, the activity took place on the left. And of course, it crossed ideological lines. They say here with crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. So for all of you that think the Republicans are the answer to our fucking problems in this next election, have you not learned yet? The Republicans are traitors too. They went behind your back and sold you out to the Democratic Party. The scenario of the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. Well, then what was it? You didn't want Trump to run again. What else makes sense? Or is it that you don't want anyone of the Republican side to ever be elected ever again? That's a possibility. They say they wanted it to be an election that was so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all, which would therefore make it a failure of the central act of democratic self-governance. Meaning they wanted to put so much doubt and confusion, manipulation, lies, and just treachery into this whole system that we call the election. They wanted to disturb and disrupt it so much that no result could be discerned at all. If that is not Corruption? I don't know what is. They're not done admitting what they illegally changed to win the election. They continue to admit their work touched every aspect of the election. Holy shit. I mean, I knew about this article since the day it came out, thanks to independent journalists like Tim Pool. How many of you heard about this? This article is damn near 3 years old. And they admit what they did. And there's still questions about the legitimacy of the 2020 election. They write, they got states to change voting systems and laws and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. What they fail to tell you here is that they got state legislatures to illegally change their election or voting mail-in ballot methods. It's been so long, I'm going to fuck up the specific details, but bear with me a little bit. Do some of this research for yourself, please. This part where they say they got states to change voting systems. You're absolutely right. They pushed mail-in voting and then said that mail-in votes have to be counted past election day, when in our very Constitution, it basically says the winner of the election shall be decided election day. So in my opinion, mail-in voting is a fraudulent system designed to cheat and fraudulently sway an election. It should not be allowed anymore. Mail-in voting should be banned, period. You want to talk about absentee voting? Cool. I'm all for that. But mail-in voting, where none of your information can be verified, fuck that. They got states to change laws. They don't tell you that, again, laws were illegally changed. Governing bodies that did not have the authority to make or pass law, passed laws regarding elections and ballot harvesting and all the likes. They illegally changed their processes. And Republicans tried to sue. But you know what federal leftist judges told Republicans? You can't sue until there's actually damages. So once there was damages, they said, oh, it's too late. This is already law now. It's the precedent now. So you're saying I can't do anything to stop illegal actions other than wait till the illegal actions have taken place and caused damages to me, then I can claim damages. But once I claim damages, you're telling me, well, it's already an active law. You can't, like, no hardship has been done to you from the new law. They're admitting that they broke laws to change the election laws to accept mail-in ballots past the day they're supposed to be counted. The deadlines of when the election ends were extended. They fended off voter suppression lawsuits, recruited armies of poll workers, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time. Again, this was all unconstitutional and illegal. Ballot harvesting, sure. Feel free to do that. But were Republicans doing that? No. And that's part of the reason why Republicans lost. Because Republicans weren't going out there and mass fixing people's ballots. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and user data-driven strategies to fight viral smears. Oh, you mean when we had a legitimate article about Hunter Biden's laptop that came out days before the election? It was suppressed by the Biden administration. It was actively ignored by every major news institution in America. You want to know what came out about a week after the polling was closed? We found out that because there was another government out, or there was another poll out, I want to say it was by Civics, don't quote me, but about a week after the election, there was a poll that came out that said, have you heard of the Hunter Biden laptop story. And if you had heard of it, would you have still voted for Joe Biden or would you have voted for Trump? And guess what? 7% of respondents said that they would not have voted for Joe Biden and they would have instead voted for Trump had they known that. So right here, they are telling you they suppressed legitimate news stories. They hid the truth from you, saying that the right is pushing disinformation, the right is pushing misinformation, when in fact they're lying, omitting the truth. They're not telling you the truth. And we've got sorry, got a little heated, lost my train of thought for a second there. How are you going to say that Republicans were using disinformation when it was your son and his illegal actions that you ignored that won you the presidency? And again, when people were asked, would you have voted for Biden still? 7% said no, I would have voted for Trump. Now, do you remember what exactly that means? In the initial reporting, Joe Biden won by like 6% of the vote. 6%. What I just read you was 7%. So let's extrapolate that a little bit more. If the entire country had known about it, not just these small population of people polled, the whole country had known about the Hunter Biden laptop story, don't you think at least 7% of the entire voting population would have voted against Joe Biden and voted for Trump? In which case, seeing as how Biden only lost by 6%, but 7% would have changed their vote to vote for Trump, guess what? Trump would have won the election free and fair. What do you know? Wouldn't you have guessed? I mean, to me it makes sense, but apparently not to everyone else. To me, it makes sense that if you illegally change laws, if you rig an election, if you rig the circumstances surrounding the election, if you use what were the words they used here? If you use the institutions surrounding the election and voting and you use them illegally, it's no wonder you can sway an election to your side. And they continue to give us more admissions of how they cheated to win. Shall we continue? Please, YouTube, try and cut me off because you know this is real. I've got the receipts. We're reading it together. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a hard line against disinformation. Yeah. They lied about what they were doing, and they lied about what Republicans were doing. They executed national public awareness campaigns that helped Americans understand how the vote count would unfold over days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more traction. In other words, they ignored the part of the Constitution that says Election Day is this day. The president shall be decided by this time on this day. The Democrats said, again, they wanted Americans to understand how the vote count would unfold over days. Excuse me, you fucking corrupt bastards. The Constitution tells us at this time, at this day, here is where the vote count stands, meaning this is who's president. So there's nothing remotely even that makes sense here. They wanted to tell you how the vote count would unfold. In other words, they wanted to tell you that they were breaking the Constitution because the Constitution has clearly defined terms and limits for this. They don't care. They want the election to go on until they have enough votes to win. And then they'll call an end to the election. That's how they want it to work. After Election Day, think about this. Even after Election Day, they're still admitting about things they're doing. They monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the result. So in other words, people like me, like Steven Crowder, like others who posted videos and proof and evidence of poll workers doing things illegally, of Congresses doing things illegally, of state legislatures changing things illegally. YouTube and you fucking social media platforms like YouTube, you silenced us, you banned us, you put strikes on our content, you removed us, and you silenced us so that we wouldn't put out the truth that some shady shit actually was happening. And that maybe none of us argued that this one thing can change the election. Not one person was dumb enough to say that. However, every single one of us said, if this one thing is happening, along with these 5 other things that I can prove are happening, why don't you please just take a look into one of them? And the government said no. The untold story of the election is the thousands of people of both parties who accomplished the triumph of American democracy at its very foundation, says Norm Eisen, a prominent lawyer and former Obama administration official who recruited Republicans and Democrats to the board of the Voter Protection Program. That doesn't summarize it better than I could, and I don't know what to tell you. She can tell I'm getting a little upset. She's trying to help calm me down, I think. Let's see, what is it here? So they're admitting that there are thousands of people who had a hand in this. Where are the trials for them? When are we going to start investigations for these people who tried to destroy America's election system, who, again, broke laws to change our election system? And once again, why should we trust any Republican or Democrat ever again? What have any of you done for us? What are any of you doing for us? Besides bickering at Capitol Hill and getting your 5 minutes of airtime every day so that way you can look good for the cameras, what are you actually doing to make a difference in my life, my neighbor's life, my company's life? What are you doing? What are you doing to prevent YouTube from censoring the truth? What are you doing to prevent people like those that would work with the Times to work against Americans and destroy American democracy? Sorry, America is a republic as it should be. So here again, they're talking about the accomplished triumph of American democracy. This is American democracy. Fuck you. I don't want a part of it. We are a constitutional republic. This is the kind of degeneracy that happens in a democracy, full of corruption. And then, of course, they say that Trump was just crying and saying that everything was rigged. Really? Because you just admitted that everything was rigged. The democracy campaigners watched with alarm. Every week, we felt like we were in a struggle to try to pull off this election without the country going through a real dangerous moment of unraveling. We can look back and say this thing went pretty well, but it was not at all clear in September and October that that was going to be the case. Holy shit. If you don't understand that America is no longer America, you got your head so far up your ass you can't see the light of day. Or you're lying to yourself, or you refuse to see the truth, or you're blind, or you're ignorant, or all of the above. Wow. That's just the small, tiny little bullet section of the 2020 election law changes. And I mean, again, that to some degree ties in with January 6th. Hang on a second. I don't want you to fall off. Yeah, are you okay? Yeah. Are you okay? Yeah, I got you. I got you. Yeah, it's okay. Why did you go, girl? You want to get up? You want to do it yourself? I got you. Good job.
It's a good girl. So come in. Daddy come hang out with you? What jinx?
Alrighty, everybody. Thanks for your patience. She looks a little stranded up there. I didn't want to have her falling off into the abyss. Anyway, so yeah, that one little tiny bullet point of the 2020 election law changes, that took me, 20, 30 minutes just to talk about that? And that takes us to January 6th. Why did January 6th take place? Why did so many people go to the Capitol to have their voices heard? Or to hear Trump's voice? Maybe it was because so many people saw so much of what I have. Maybe it's because, Donald Trump just has a big following. A lot of people wanted to go see him at what could have been his final speech as president. January 6th, I've always said this. I've never changed my opinion on it. January 6th was a day where a collection of a bumbling band of buffoons stumbled and bumbled their way through the Capitol, giving themselves a freely guided tour of which they knew not the consequences. And, let's be honest, that's all that it was. January 6th may have been a riot. It was certainly a protest. It might have been a riot, but if we're going by the definition of a riot according to the left, well, then this was a peaceful protest. This was not an insurrection, as, again, there's been several instances in our history where there have been left-wing activist groups who brought bombs to the Capitol and blew up parts of the Capitol. Or they actually brought guns and killed people, or even took hostages. There's been other attacks where the left has attacked state capitals recently. And, hang on, guys. Sorry, give me 1 second. Gonna take a quick break. Gotta take care of the cat real quick. Give me just a minute, everybody. Alrighty, everyone. I apologize for that emergency break there. I'll go ahead and tell you. So, not sure how many people know this, but so obviously I've got a cat. My cat came to me from an interesting situation, but she had previously been declawed on the front. And I don't know how many people know this. Declawing your cat is not that great for your cat. In fact, there's many states that won't declaw your cat because it's just not good for them. The reason why I had to go to a quick break real quick is because my cat is declawed, she experiences something. And for those of you that have cats, maybe this happens to your cat too every now and again. I've found through some studying that it seems that cats who have been declawed on their front claws, they have or they develop some kind of weird stance in their posture that messes up their vertebrae more or less. I'm not a fucking vet, so forgive me if I'm not getting this perfectly accurate, but more or less something misaligns in their back and it creates a very sensitive spot. And so again, it's kind of like a human. If you mess up your, like if you sit with a wallet, like for men, if you sit and you have a wallet in your back right pocket or back left pocket, it's going to eventually adjust your spine in a kind of weird way because of how you're sitting. Kind of the same thing with cats and their claws. They don't walk properly anymore because they don't have their claws out, right? Which adjusts their back alignment, which then causes pain and irritation at some point. So essentially, there will be points throughout the day where her back just kind of starts twitching, and she'll start ripping out. She'll try to rip out little patches of fur off her back. And again, it's just because it's sensitive, it's annoying to her, and that seems to be to her how she can fix it. I do my best to distract her in those times. I mean, you can't really stop her from trying to help herself. You know what I mean? Like, she might be in pain or she might be uncomfortable. I can't get mad at her or stop her for that. But I try to redirect her, try to get her to play a little bit, get some energy out, and that seems to help. So just want to throw that out there in case any of you have cats, in case any of you wanted to think about getting your cat declawed. Not worth it. If your cat is declawed and is experiencing some of these symptoms, that might be why. Anyway, we were just getting to January 6th and how the riots and the 2020 election law changes brought us to January 6th. I had mentioned that to me, January 6th was always a bumbling band of buffoons just bewildered and bumbling their way through Congress or through the Capitol. Depending on which side of the building you were on that day, you either broke in or you were let in. And yet everyone was charged as a criminal. Many people were held without trial. Some people are still held without trial. One man was held without medical attention for a broken wrist I think it was a broken wrist. Double check me on that. He was not given medical treatment for over a year because he was a MAGA supporter. January 6th to Republicans was nothing more than another protest or another chance to go listen to the president. Now, there's many people like Alex Jones, Steven Crowder, Glenn Beck, Tim Pool. I mean, there was many independent people on YouTube that were saying, do not go to this. This seems like a setup. It seems like some bad shit can probably happen very easily. They were expecting like 1 million people down there. With 1 million people, a crowd can get unruly pretty quick. I mean, we've all seen what happens with the Antifa and BLM mobs. One person throws a rock, then everyone starts breaking, bashing, and looting. People like us advised, Like, hey, man, it's common sense. Don't go down there. Bad shit's going to come your way. Well, you can't control everybody. You can't save everybody from themselves. And out of 100,000 people, they had maybe 1,000 arrests. They say there's thousands more, but we've yet to see proof of this wrongdoing from them. They've failed to show us the 14,000 hours of security footage that they have, which we're entitled to, but they refuse to show it, probably because there's no real wrongdoing that they can prove. Now, again, yes, people fought with cops. Yes, people hurt cops. Yes, people were hurt by cops. The only person who died that day was a Trump supporter who was murdered by Capitol Police, a scared Capitol Police officer. And I've done an episode on him. He's a piece of shit. He should not have had a gun, nor should he have been in that building, because he was the only officer that fired a round through that window. There was numerous, dozens, hundreds of armed agents in that building. No one felt scared enough to fire their weapon. But this one guy did, and he killed an innocent protester. Where's the charges for him? Where's the charges for Ray Epps? Oh, that's right. YouTube doesn't want you to talk about Ray Epps. The government doesn't want you to talk about Ray Epps because they can't talk about him. Really? Is that because he's a federal informant? Oh, well, they can't tell you that either. Well, can the government tell us how many FBI actors were there on January 6th? No. Can they tell us if there were paid FBI actors there on January 6th? Yes, they can. Okay, so we know there was paid informants by the FBI who were agitating the crowd, trying to get support to break into the Capitol. How do we know this? Because Ray Epps is on video the night before and the day of urging people to break into the Capitol. His words, not mine. We need to break into the Capitol. And you know what people said? No, you're crazy. No, this guy's a Fed. This guy is a federal agent. Get him out of here. He's not with us. This guy's a Fed. Are we going to talk about incitement to violence? This guy incited people who then committed violence. That's incitement to violence in the definition. Any charges? No? So then I demand that you release every single defendant from January 6th. That's simple. Not one rioter, looter, arsonist, or Black Lives Matter or Antifa murderer got locked up for their crimes or stayed in jail for their crimes during 2020. So how dare we keep protesters, simple protesters, locked up for years over misdemeanors when people committed felonies and they're still out on the streets? January 6th happened because people like me wanted to go hear a man who has been attacked by the deep state the same as I. We wanted to hear from a man who said, I take my steak medium rare, or I'll go to McDonald's. That's a normal sounding person. Who thinks it's normal for Nancy Pelosi in the middle of a pandemic to open her $30,000 fucking commercial grade freezer and show us her 30 tubs of fucking ice cream? That's reality? No. People got fed up with your kind of shit. The shit that's happening in Washington every day. We're fed up with that. That's why January 6th happened. People wanted to hear a man say, enough. And then they were invited to peacefully protest at the Capitol. And so they did. And then how many FBI informants egged the protests on into a riot? How many FBI informants and police officers pushed people into the building against their will? So there's some questions. There's questions about the election. There's questions about January 6th. And fuck you if you want to try and say I'm some kind of conspiracy theorist. There's evidence, there's data, there's footage, there's documents, there's classified leaks, there's non-classified leaks, there's magazine articles, there's internet articles. What more do I need to bring to you to give you the truth? Which led to Biden's election. Was he... I don't know what to say. I don't call Joe Biden the president because he has not earned that title, in my view. To me, Joe Biden is the dictator. He's the stumbling, bumbling grandpa that doesn't know where the fuck he is. He's the guy who, when children were murdered by a trans shooter, he talks about how he wants ice cream and to be around little kids. That's our president. Children are murdered. And he talks about his sick fantasies of wanting to sniff children and be around them with his hairy legs. No wonder he couldn't withdraw from Afghanistan in any kind of competent fashion. No wonder Biden blamed his botched withdrawal from Afghanistan on Trump. He tried to say there was no plan. Excuse me, you fucking liar. But I've got the receipts. Trump had a plan to leave Afghanistan. He had times and dates. And guess what? You, Mr. Biden, you and your fucking regime failed to follow that timeline, failed to follow the guidelines. When push came to shove at the very last moment, what did you do? That's right. You didn't admit your faults. You didn't admit to your inadequacies. What you did, Mr. Biden, was you ditched our military bases in Afghanistan in the middle of the night without even telling the company commanders. You left behind billions of dollars of equipment and military gear, weapons and ammunition, and then you had the gall to tell me about 2 weeks later that I need to be better at locking up my guns so that criminals don't get them. Excuse me, you fuckhead. You just let an entire country of armed militants steal our equipment, our guns, our radios, our night vision goggles, our body armor, our bullets, and our bombs. And you have the audacity to tell me that I need to lock shit up. Fuck you, Joe Biden. You leave behind billions of dollars of American supplies and say, no, we destroyed it. Guess what? Video just came out from ISIS the other day. They've restored all of the vehicles we left there. They're all operational. They are now driving, operating, and weaponizing U.S. military vehicles that you left there. And Joe Biden would have you believe that this was a good withdrawal. We did good. Really. Do you not remember the people, or do you not remember the pictures and the videos of women, mothers, young teenage women, throwing their baby over concertina wire? Let me pull a video. I'm pulling up an image of this. Don't worry, YouTube. I'm not going to pull up a graphic image of the babies in the concertina wire. But I'm going to make sure we all understand what this type of wire is and what it looks like. Excuse me. All right, let's look at it together. Let me remind you that women, mothers, grandmothers, young women, teenage women, they were throwing their children, their young babies, over this razor wire. When we withdrew from Afghanistan, the Afghanis knew the hell that they were about to pay for us abandoning them. Our allies that we left over there, they knew their babies would be raped by ISIS and then murdered. They knew their babies would be raped by ISIS and then murdered. So what did they decide to do instead? These strong, brave women, with about the only option they had left, decided to throw their babies over this concertina razor wire in the hopes that some American might catch their child, and maybe their child might survive, and maybe their child will have a shot at life. Can you imagine the desperation of someone? Put this in your shoes. In your shoes, can you imagine taking your son, your infant child or daughter, and not just handing it to another service member on the other side of a razor fence? No. Taking your child and throwing it as hard as you can, so that way your child doesn't get caught in this razor wire. There was tens, if not dozens, if not hundreds of babies that got stuck in that razor wire, who died in that razor wire. And that was still a better fate than what was to come from ISIS. In the 13 months before we withdrew from Afghanistan, not a single service member died. An entire year of no deaths. And we were at war still. No one died. No American lost their life in over 365 days. Joe Biden comes in, and in one fucking day, 13 service members lose their lives due to his failure, due to his incompetency as a leader. I mean, 70% of Democrats now admit they don't want to see Joe Biden run again. So why did you even vote for him in the first place? What change did you really think he was going to bring? Oh, that's right. You couldn't picture this kind of change. You couldn't picture that our leader could be so inept into his job that people would fling their newborn children over razor wire because that's a better fate than what we're leading them to. And Joe Biden had the audacity to call it a success. As you can tell, all of these topics have not only been going on for the last couple of years, many of them have been going on for near a decade. I mean, some of these next topics, do you remember back in the day when it was just gay and lesbian? There was no LGBT, there was no pride flag, there was no rainbow flag. It was just Pride Day and gay and lesbian people. And that's it. And then at some point it turned into LGB. Then turned into LGBT because we gotta be inclusive, right? But again, if we're talking about inclusive, we're including everybody naturally. And then it was LGBTQ for questioning. To some degree, if you're any of the alphabet soup, aren't you questioning to some degree? We'll leave it there. So that's where it started. One extra letter at a time in the name of inclusivity. And then that went on to trans people. And again, like I told you, it was a seductive trap. It was a very well-worded trap that could suck in most of the population to be confused into being confused about sex and gender. And that was very interesting. It was very interesting to be on the front lines of being sucked into that ideology, being the first to recognize the damage they were actually espousing. And then to come out of it safe and okay and unharmed, as so very few people do. When I was telling you my story earlier, I don't think I ever concluded with why I decided to not continue down the path of transgender. I thought I was transgender. I transitioned as much as I felt comfortable. So you could basically say I became a cross-dresser. I went and got my hormones, and I was ready to take them. But there was one question that I couldn't get away from, or one answer, or one. There was something holding me back, and I couldn't quite figure out what or why. Now, me personally, I've always known that I want kids. I want to be a dad. I want to spread my genes and leave this place a better place than I found it. If I don't leave anyone to make the future brighter, how can I have hopes for the future? If I don't raise people in a well-mannered way, why would I have hope for the future? So it's a very, very big thing for me, was to have kids. Okay, so as a male transitioning to a female, what are your options? Well, if you're going to chemically castrate yourself by taking hormones, you need to understand you're chemically castrating yourself. I don't care what the doctors tell you. They're lying. If you take hormones for long enough, you will castrate yourself, and it will be irreversible to some degree. Let's continue. If I wanted to have kids, that means I needed to have sperm. Well, if I'm on estrogen or estradiol or whatever, can I create sperm after, say, 2-3 years? No, probably not. And again, let's assume that I want to be married before I have kids. Then one would assume that you would assume that if you want to have kids, you want to be married, that you have to, by the grace of God, find someone within the next year or two. Actually, let me back up a little bit. So if you want to have kids and you know that you're going to basically castrate yourself chemically, then you know that you need to save your sperm. Put it in a sperm bank. What's the cliche from the movies? I need to go to the doctor's office and jack off and get some money. So I thought about that. I said, okay, how long can sperm be stored for? Up to 5 years. It's the best answer I could find, was up to 5 years, but on average, 2 to 3 years. And even then, we're talking a shit ton of money for them to hold on to your sperm for that long, let alone 5 years. Okay, so you want to transition, you understand you're going to castrate yourself, but you want to have kids, so you decide to put your sperm in a sperm bank. Okay, you've got a plan. I had a plan. So the next part of the idea would be, well, hopefully, by the grace of God, I find a woman in the next 5 years that actually wants to be with a trans person and have kids with a trans person. And I got to hope that they want to have kids and that they can have kids. And then I have to hope that my little bit of sperm that I stored 2 to 5 years ago, I have to hope that not only is it viable, but that the first time gets her pregnant. What if, my collection of sperm, what if they, I don't know how exactly it works. Imagine they use all of my stored sperm on one try. What if it doesn't work? What if she doesn't get pregnant? What if she has a miscarriage? I can never have kids at that point. Never. Doesn't matter what I do. Doesn't matter if I had all the surgeries, even if I went back and reversed all the surgeries and had a penis again, I could never have a kid with my own sperm. They're not telling you that. They're not telling your kids that. They're lying to you about the truth. Damn them to hell. They should be held criminally accountable. Nuremberg trials for these kind of doctors. People need to pay some consequences for lying to people about changing their body and chemical makeup for the rest of their lives. And what I really hate about the LGBTQ agenda, what I came to hate about it, is that they force this upon people. They say, if you don't do this, If you don't transition medically, you're more likely to commit suicide. If you don't follow your inkling, you're more likely to commit suicide. Just by being trans, you're more likely to commit suicide. No one ever talked about all of the people that have detransitioned. No one talked about all the people that have committed suicide after transitioning and then after detransitioning. So my argument is that no, we're not helping people and we're not helping kids and we are not preventing suicide. My argument is that by pushing this shit off and by affirming people's beliefs and shit they don't fully comprehend themselves, you are destroying people for the rest of their lives to a point where they can no longer ever become even a shadow of what they were before. And that's why people are killing themselves. It's not because they're trans. It's because you lied to them so much and distorted reality so much that they can't come back to that, no matter what. I despise the LGBTQ agenda because they say that if you don't affirm these people and push them to be trans, you're killing them. No, I'm not. What's killing these people is themselves and you lying to them. For all the people that would say, actually, let me look this up before I say it. Give me just a second here. Please bear with me. I have a question in regards to mental health. Okay, I'm reading this from the Cleveland Clinic, my.clevelandclinic.org. I'm going to say this first, and then I'll read you my receipts and the proof. I would argue that, again, the trans agenda, the LGBTQ movement, you people are mentally sick in the head. Perhaps I was. Perhaps I was. Why do I say that? You are diagnosed with transgenderism according to the DSM-5. What does the DSM-5 do? What is its purpose? What is its functionality? What is the DSM-5? The Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, often known as the DSM, is a reference book on mental health and brain-related conditions and disorders. So, you people that have these psychiatric conditions that are diagnosable by the DSM-5, you are a little crazy. Maybe crazy is going too far, but you have a mental disorder. I'm tired of seeing trans and leftist people and non-conforming people on stupid TikTok videos saying, why can't people just do this or do that or conform to this for me and blah, 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 me and my and I and fuck. Jesus, do you not realize how narcissistic you sound? How self-involved you are? All you care about is yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, and woe is me. You ever think the world doesn't care about you that much? You ever think that maybe you're not that special? You're not important. Why am I any more important than you? Why are you any more important than I? And then we got to talk about drag. A couple of years ago, you would have asked me, hey, how do you feel about drag? I would have said, I don't care. It's kind of a silly show put on by mostly gay people at bars. That's what I would have said. I went to a drag show a few years ago. That was the vibe that I got. It was at a gay bar of lesbians, gays, bi people, and it was all seemingly gay boys. Some acted more femininely. Some wanted to be called by women's pronouns. But again, this was all new back then to me. And to me, it was just, okay, there's a bunch of guys. Some are dressed up in girl clothes and they're acting like strippers. Okay, well, if this is entertaining to the gay community, so be it. What does it affect me? It doesn't bother me. But then you started taking it to the kids. Then you started to thrust and gyrate and pose in front of children. Then you started to strip in front of children, revealing your panty lines, going up to children's faces whose head don't even reach your panty line, asking for dollar bills from them. You drag artists who have encouraged this movement, have done this to sexualize kids. And my question is, why do you want kids sexualized? What pedophilic nature is in you that you want kids in you in this sexualized environment? That's what it is. What is a strip club? What is a drag show? It is a sexual provocative performance. Why do you want kids around that? Why do you want kids to see your junk? Why? No, really. I'll wait here all fucking day. I dare you to give me a legitimate excuse, some heroic, some rational meaning as to why you want a kid at your nutsack looking at your nuts when you're pretending to be a girl. Tell me. You people would call us transphobic, this phobic, that phobic. I don't fear you. I have a problem with you. I'm not phobic of you. I don't have any fear nor confusion or misunderstanding about you. I understand you perfectly. You are a pedophile. You like children in a sexual way. You are a groomer. You are grooming kids to think that this is natural, that kids just have always had sex with adults, have always been at strip clubs and drag performances. Excuse me, but even in a television show as fake as Game of Thrones, even in those strip clubs, the kids were outside. The children of the whores were outside. They didn't have a clue what was going on inside. They didn't see their mothers sleeping around with every man in the city. Even in a movie like that, they understood. Even in a show like that, where it's all about the sex and tits and ass, even they understood. You keep kids out of this. Kids should be kept innocent. Kids don't need to know what sex is or what body parts are until they're of a certain age. We can debate about what that age is for all I care. But drag and trans and LGBTQ, what have they led to? They led to LGBTQIA plus SNM apostrophe colon comma period fucking question mark hashtag. Did I forget anything? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. There. Can't say I forgot anyone. Jesus Christ. I don't fear you because you are confused and have a mental disorder. I pity you because your head is so far up your ass, you can't even admit the truth to yourself. You can't even introspect just a little bit and say, am I the problem? Am I seeing things wrong? Have I been told wrong? I bring that up because where does the left generally get their news from? From left-wing sources. Where does the right generally get their news from? From left and right-wing sources. It's funny that the left, no matter what facet of life we're talking about, all they do is live in echo chambers, bubble chambers. You know, they only talk to people that are going to affirm what they already believe. When people like you or I come into the fold, they view it as we're attacking their worldview. I'm not attacking you. I'm not trying to destroy your worldview. I want to help improve your life. But to do that, I need to beat you down a little bit because you're on your fucking high horse that you have no right to sit upon. And I need to take you off that a few steps so that you and I are at the same footing with the same facts in the same objective reality. I shouldn't have to call it objective reality for you to understand that it's real. Does that not show what's wrong in our society? Or do we need to keep going and talking about mansplaining and toxic masculinity, right? The feminist movement nowadays would have you believe that all men do is mansplain when they talk to females. We talk to females like they're stupid because we're misogynists. No, I've thought about this for quite a bit. You want to know what mansplaining is and why men do it? I'll tell you why. Because in the jobs that men work, typically, we have to report to female bosses or male bosses who do not understand the job we're doing. So when I have to tell someone about my job that I'm doing who has no clue of the object I'm working on, the space I'm working in, the tools I'm using, what it takes to fix the thing I'm working on, the operating requirements of the thing I'm working on, they don't know a fucking thing. So I have to explain it to them as though they're stupid or as though they're a baby or a child. And I don't mean offense by that. I just mean that, like, I can't say to, like, my boss, yeah, man, I worked on this AC, it's good to go. No, I have to say, like, I went up to this AC, I checked the power. Power coming in is good. I've got 240 volts or 208, whatever it is, wherever you're at. I checked the capacitor. I checked the common and the Herm and the common and, like, you could keep going and explain different parts of, like, an AC component. And I could explain it piece by piece by piece, what each piece does in relation to the other and what they do for the whole operation of an air conditioning unit. I can explain that all to you. But you're going to say that I'm mansplaining because I have to break shit down to a level that you can understand. Same thing goes when men and women talk. Men talk differently than women. Women use more words than guys. So if a guy is going to be as descriptive in a conversation as a woman, he's going to use words differently than a woman is going to. So ladies, it's not that we're mansplaining to you or we think you're stupid. It's just that stupid project idea you got off TikTok is stupid. You think you're going to spend $5 at Home Depot and $10 at home making this big illustrious, I don't know, fucking table or whatever it is. You're like, oh yeah, I saw a TikTok video. It's easy. I'm going to do it. Can you help me? Sure, I'll help you. So then I start to help, and it's obvious you have no clue what you're doing. So I start to explain, okay, first you have to cut the wood to this size. Okay, now you have to sand the wood. Okay, now that you've sanded the wood, are you going to stain it or are you going to paint it? Okay, you want to stain it. Okay, so then we need to take some tap cloth or some cheesecloth, and we need to wipe and make sure all the dust is off the surface first. Well, they didn't do that in this video. Well, that's because they don't know what the fuck they're doing in that video. You need to listen to someone who's knowledgeable and believable. I'm telling you from experience that this TikTok video is bullshit. It's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to cost you a lot more than you thought it was going to. I can help you make this table look exactly like you thought it would. But it's going to take a lot more work. And I'm going to have to explain a lot of it to you. And I'm going to have to teach you a lot of this. Because you can't just throw on stain and wipe it off and say, oh, yeah, that's good. You have to know how to apply stain. How long are you going to let it sit? How are you going to wipe it off? How are you going to cure it once it's done drying? Are you putting another finishing layer or clear coat on top of that? Just because you think you know doesn't mean you know. And then you ask a guy for advice or help or whatever, and he has to break all this stuff down that you don't understand. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're intentionally misinformed. And it's not that we're treating you like you're stupid. It's that a man Hey there, folks. Welcome back. I don't know why my feed shut off there. Hopefully they didn't just straight pull us off of YouTube. We'll go ahead and check. But anyway, I was basically in the middle of talking about mansplaining and toxic masculinity, and just saying that when men are explaining things to you, we're not doing it in a way to tell you that you're stupid or that you don't understand. It's that men have to understand so much of the world to get ahead, just to have a basic foothold in life. We have to have so much more knowledge than those surrounding us to be valuable, to be wanted. And with that comes knowledge. With knowledge comes expertise. With expertise means to share that knowledge and expertise, you have to break it down to a first grade level so that even the most basic human can understand and keep up and follow through with what you're saying and doing. If you feminists want to yell and screech about mansplaining and toxic masculinity, where are you to admit your fault of toxic femininity? It's disgusting to see a woman that wants to act like a man. Yeah, I'll say it. It's disgusting to see a woman who slept with, I don't know, let's just throw a number out there, 10, 15, 20 people, and anything plus. It's disgusting. It's not attractive. You're not empowered. You're not stronger because of it. You're less valuable. You're uglier because of that. Oh, and you've cheated because like many women are, you're not monogamous, you're hypergamous. Well, that also takes down your value. Why would I want to be with someone who's going to leave in 5-10 years after we've made a life together? Or, like any aspect of modern feminism is absolutely abhorrent and disgusting. I don't think it's attractive to like free the nipple, free the titty. That's great that you feel liberated. If you're an adult and you're in a parade, I don't really care. At the same time, I ain't gonna date you. Why do I want someone who's displayed the most valuable parts of themselves? Not valuable monetarily. I mean, what is the most intimate thing you can give someone? It's your private parts, the parts of you that are meant to procreate. That's the most intimate thing you can